One of my favorite lines in any hymn, "Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace." I am what you might call a very spiritual atheist. I believe that the words blessing and sacred and holy are words for all people. And the imagery of tuning in that line really hits me hard. It doesn't ask us to transform or change. We're not told that we are lesser or broken the way that many hymns suggest that we are. It just says, sometimes you need to tune yourself a little bit. Sometimes you need to tune yourself up a little bit to be in connection with yourself, to be in connection with the people around us. It's important to tune. And I think that we could all use a little bit of tuning at what I feel is a pivot point in our history. Tuning takes time and effort, but it's worth it. I went to see Rhiannon Giddens play at the Whaling Church this summer, and she was up on stage tuning for quite a while, and she said, "I'm breaking all the laws of public performance." She said, actually, it wasn't even her, it was somebody else who was tuning, and she was making apologies for him, and she was saying, "I have been told that we shouldn't do this, you should never tune." And then I go to open mics and people say, "Don't tune publicly, don't do it." And then Rhiannon said, "Have you ever seen an orchestra? Have you ever gone to an orchestra and seen how important it is for tuning to happen in order for beauty to be made?" I think we do a disservice when we suggest to people that things like tuning, connecting, listening in, feeling like we're in sync again is something invisible that shouldn't be seen by the people who are around us. Shouldn't we make these things that are holy and sacred the most visible possible? Shouldn't it be important for us to spend a moment to sit and connect ourselves in with something deeper and more resonant so that we can be in the space of full glory and beauty and sound? One of the things that I discovered this summer is that I love all singing. I love good singing. I love bad singing. I love out-of-tune singing. I love it when people feel called to make their voices do something together with one another. I support it completely. And one of the reasons that I feel so strongly about this is that I think we're losing more and more and more of an opportunity to sing together publicly, in this country especially. We don't have a lot of places where we say, it's important for me to hear other people making joyful noise together. We frequently get together to listen to music, but how often do we get together to sing? That old fireside singing, or around the piano as somebody plays the old tunes. Even at Christmas time, there's fewer and fewer places where like caroling just happens regularly, and you're invited to bring your voice into it. And one of the reasons that I think that happens is that people have gotten more and more afraid, maybe it's an auto-tune thing, but more and more afraid of being out of key, being off tune, being somehow discordant or out of sync with the people around them. They don't want to be called out or seen for somehow being lesser than the people that are around them. But the reality is that the point of singing is joyful noise, not perfection. The point of singing is letting that come out of you into a space, sharing it widely and recognizing that we are all made more abundant and holy when we give ourselves into the impulse to make noise, whatever noise that might be. So I applaud all singing of all kinds. And I learned that in part because it was summer. I went to Star Island to the Faith Development Week, and they had a band there called Emma's Revolution, which they've been around for a while. They do a lot of Unitarian Universalist songs, and Pat Humphreys, who's one of the singers there, studied with Pete Seeger. And they said, we sat in a circle and they said, all right, everybody's gonna sing. And the people looked like they had just been told that they were about to give birth with no preparation at all, no epidurals or anything. It was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna do what? And somebody said, oh, can we opt out? because we're an opting out kind of people, right? Pluralism. They said, no, you can't opt out. You're going to sing. So they said, what are we going to sing? You're going to sing your name. That's all we had to do was sing our name. And they wanted to point out, so what they did was they said, all right, you sing your name. So I sang Janet, and they were like, all right, we're going to echo that back. Janet, Janet. And that's all we had to do. And then they said, okay, now add in some harmonies. Can we try that? Let's see. Janet. One more. Janet. Suddenly, we all became a choir singing a name. It was extraordinary how fast we went from being people who were like, please don't make me do this, to, I guess I can give it a try. And there were some people who were like, well, I don't sing. And they said, okay, well, what's your name? Diane. I'm sorry, I didn't intentionally mean to pick that name. I was just Diane. And they said, oh, do you hear that when you speak the name Diane, you're speaking with tone and rhythm? Diane, Diane. So we all sang, Diane. And it was extraordinary to have people believe that they had a reason to lift their voice into public space in a solo of their name, a claiming of their name. It was extraordinarily powerful, democratizing, and it invited us into our bodies and in our awareness of one another, to speak in pitch and rhythm, to sing in that way, to make a mistake, to get the wrong harmony, to suddenly sound really off pitch with the person next to you, to be the person who's screaming when everybody else is being quiet. It doesn't even matter. All we are is these people together, aware of one another and orienting ourselves to one another in that way. And part of what that does is remind us that we make mistakes. So our goal is to have a failing forward mentality, to make the mistake together, to learn from failure, to create a non-anxious mindset that says, we're gonna fail, we might do this wrong, we might have the right or wrong sound, the wrong number of people, whatever it is. If we fail, the most important thing is to have the curiosity about it. What did we fail at? Why did it happen? What can we learn from those failures? How do we fail again better? I think one of the most important things about this idea that we are a people who could be giving our voices into public space, the reminder that we don't get to pass in certain spaces. It is our duty to bring our voice into spaces that we are afraid to speak into. That was the gift of my time with those women on Star Island who told us that we could sing, even though many of us believed that we could not. And I think that that is part of what it means to be a group of religious people, to fail into beauty, and to listen to one another as we do so, honoring what each of us has to bring. And that is the beginning of what I want to bring to you about my summer vacation. My hope is that you feel compelled to rise in body or spirit and sing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing with us. So I was at an open mic earlier this summer, and I was playing. I said, I'm going to sing a song I just wrote. I've never written a song before. I'm going to sing a song I've never sung in public. I was nervous about it because I'm always nervous when I sing in public. And I was playing the song, just doing the introduction to it. The reason I'm nervous playing in public, by the way, is because I was about 20 years old and I was playing like at a street fair. For the place that I worked, we had a little street fair out in front, and I was playing and I was very bad at the guitar. Getting better. And somebody said, "Get on with it," from the crowd. And I just froze and stood there. Like, I get on with what? Get off the stage? I didn't even know. And from that point on, I have been afraid to sing in public. I do a lot of things, obviously public speaking-wise, but singing in public has been challenging for me. So there I was at this open mic, and I was like playing my introduction, and I was like, oh, that's out of tune. And I said, that's out of tune, and I stopped to tune, and I heard somebody in the crowd say, Jesus, do we have to listen to this? Took me right back to being 20 years old. And I was like, oh God, here it comes again. And then I just leaned in to how vulnerable it felt to have somebody say to me, Jesus, do we have to listen to this? And it was okay. Everything was fine. I had this moment of performance shame, and then I kept on going. I have to say that the other place that I feel like I saw this happening this summer in terms of what I learned on my summer vacation was the Olympics. Did anybody watch the Olympics this summer? So a couple of things that I want to just draw out of that. One of them is people talked about the U.S. women's national soccer team as playing with joy. That's what they said several times when I watched games of theirs. They would say, look how much joy they are playing with. And that is so different from how it used to be. They used to play with this sense of burden or whatever, but it was somehow moving across the field with this sense of joy at being able to do this thing that they get to do together as a team. And if you notice when you're watching soccer, they're all so very aware of where everybody else is on the pitch, what they're doing, how different places are, and to be able to do that with joy, to be hyper aware of the people around you and lean into the joy was such a beauty to behold. The other place that I feel like I really saw it was in the sport climbing. Did anybody watch any sport climbing? They do this speed climbing where they climb up the walls fast, like 6 seconds to go way high in the air, way higher than I would ever want to be. But then they also have a part of it that's called, well, this year they called it bouldering, but it's been in the past called problems. And they set these climbing blocks up. There's a word for it, but I don't remember what it is. They set them up, and people, they come out and they look at it, and they have to figure out how to get themselves from point A to point 1 to point 2 to point all the points to get all the way to the top. So they're called problems. That's what they used to call them before they called them bouldering. And the thing that I think was so amazing is the first woman who came out, she came out and she looked at it and she was like, okay. And she tried for 5 minutes to do the same move over and over and over again. On all 4 of the problems, she tried the same starting point over and over again, and she never got off the ground. For 20 minutes on public television, broadly broadcast for the whole world to see, she tried to do the same thing, and we all thought, oh boy. She had a smile on her face the whole time. And it wasn't a smile that was like, gosh, this is deeply embarrassing, I'm gonna keep on going. It was like, there's something about this I'm not getting. There's a problem here that I'm not solving. Huh, interesting. As opposed to, I'm not gonna get a gold medal. And it made the rest of us believe that somehow we were going to be watching a bunch of people not climb a wall. Like, that's pretty much what I thought at a certain point. Like, we're gonna see a whole bunch of people not figure out the solution to this problem. What are the lessons in that? But instead, we had a whole bunch of women come through and give us these really extremely interesting ways of problem solving. If the idea had been that they were gonna do these really dynamic moves of climbing like Spider-Man, instead they became static and like wedged themselves in and held themselves in place for a long period of time before going on to the next thing. It was fascinating to watch so many people solve problems in different ways. It wasn't like there was one solution. There was a solution that was set by the people who set up the climbing course, but everybody approached it with an awareness of, these are my skills. I know that I'm really good at holding myself still and shifting my weight ever so slightly to the side that I can get myself up this wall. With a smile on my face, there was so much smiling when there was this problem solving, whether they solved it or not. And they would fall off the wall and go back, and fall off the wall and go back, failing forward. It was an extraordinary example of what it looked like to refuse to accept closed solutions. There's only one way to solve this problem, as opposed to it actually being how many different creative ways can we use our individual skills to solve a problem that we recognize needs solving? What are my skills that I can bring to this space that will allow us to problem solve forward? So what I want to invite us to think about as a congregation, my dream for this congregation, is kind of a blend of all that I've just been talking about. One of them is that I really, really want us to recognize the need to be swept into joy, to recognize that if we're going to live our lives in ways that give us hope for the future, we have to be able to do it joyfully. Sometimes we will cry tears, there is no question about that. But if we can figure out how to move into a space that says joy is going to fill me up again and allow me to look at these problems in new ways, to fail forward, to create a culture of joy that says we are doing something powerful and meaningful and hope-filled together. And the other thing is, what if instead of somebody saying, please rise in body or spirit and join with me in singing hymn number 123, whatever was happening in your body in this space, what if you leaned into that joy? And if your body said rise, you just rose. If your body said move, you just moved. If it said clap, you clapped. If it said sing, you sang, not caring if the person next to you can hear you, actually hoping that they can. Because we make a beautiful noise when we come together in spaces and solve problems with joy and a recognition that beauty is possible, that hope is possible, that we don't have to live in a state of chaos or anxiety or fear, that the antidote to that is singing together in community spaces or being together in community spaces aware of the people around us. The sound of children raising their voices in joyful noise, even as I watch my wife hold her hand like this. She's not feeling joy right now, I can sense it. But I sense the joy in these children right now, and I sense the joy in this space. So what I wanted to do today was bring a problem into this space to invite us into creating joyful noise together, create a pop-up band on a moment's notice. By the way, thank you all for that. Thank you all for that. And in the service of that, I invite us, you may stay seated if you want to, but I don't think you're going to want to. Receive this benediction in word and song. May it be so. Amen. This story that I have is done by Resistance Revival Chorus and by this pop-up band from your fabulous USMB chapel. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Ooh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. All this strength that I have, this strength that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, We extinguish our chalice with gratitude for all the joy that you brought into this space this morning. We were small but mighty, and I hope that we will continue to be mighty as we bring our voices further and further out into the world with recognition that we don't get to pass. We can sing quietly if we want to, but we gotta sing.